Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, bringing you an expanding library of education with even more ways to sharpen your trading skills. Access new online courses, insightful webcasts, articles, engaging videos, and more, all curated just for traders. Plus, guided learning paths with content designed to fit your unique interests. No sifting to find exactly what you need so you can spend your time learning to trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my new book. The book's back up on Amazon, guys. I made some updates to the old book, which was called How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. I made some changes to it and some updates and some licensing laws and some problems with the title and stuff. And we are now back available. You can go on the website, emailrevealer.com, get a signed copy, or you can go on Amazon and search for Ed Opperman, or you can search on Amazon for How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Little switch to the name there. Little change. Little minute change there. And minor changes to the book. I greatly expanded the biography portion. Also, too, if this is the first time you're listening to our show, please check out the Opperman Report member section. You go to oppermanreport.com. We have a special members section. You can sign up and become a member. All kinds of nifty, neato stuff in there where you can exclusive content, shows that you won't hear on Friday night or Saturday night. Documents. We have a documents section that we just created. We have all the Trump University lawsuit documents. Everybody's talking about Trump University now, but you heard it here first. You heard that here first on the Opperman Report. Okay, what do we got going? It feels so weird to be back. I haven't missed a Friday night show in about 3 years. And as you know, last week, as this everybody seems to know, I seem to really cause a real hullabaloo by not showing up last week. We were filming with Hank Harrison. We were covering the Bernie Sanders rallies and press conference. I rode the press bus, Bernie Sanders press bus. So very, very busy week in California, which I will be getting to shortly. For those who missed last week's show, though, it was a really good show. And you can find it. It's up on YouTube now, and it's on Spreaker. And it's uploaded on iTunes and iHeart and all that stuff. Okay? But it seems like some of the stations I sent it out to last week were able to get it played. And I was overwhelmed with the emails and Skype messages and amazing the response we got. We had like 12,000 people go to Spreaker looking for the show. And then we picked up like a couple of hundred followers from people just looking for it. And then YouTube as well. We had about 10,000 people went to YouTube. And then I think we picked up a couple of hundred subscribers over there. And then, of course, the emails and the Facebook messages. People saying, "Oh, where's the show? Hey, Ed, got dead air, Ed." The show's not. I can't get Spreaker to work, Ed. You know? Oh, my God. But I love you all. And I'm happy that you missed the show when it's not here. Okay? I promise I'll never leave you again. But last week we had Alice Backer, who's this attorney from Haiti. And she was describing mostly the Clinton corruption down in Haiti and how they ripped off about $1 billion down there from all that earthquake relief. Very detailed show. Then we had Scott Carney on talking about the red market on the trail of the world's organ brokers, bone thieves, blood farmers, and child traffickers. He wrote for Mother Jones and Wired and stuff like that, and did this big investigation on what goes on with this organ broker stuff. You know, you think you go to a hospital for a transplant or something, and there's a whole bunch of shenanigans going on that no one's aware of. Also, too, about how when you donate blood here in the United States, we export that blood out of the country, and they sell it for $300 a pint. You know? They're really amazing stuff. Then last Saturday, and I don't think hardly anybody's heard this show, it played on American Freedom Radio. But besides that, most of the other stations did not pick it up. I think IPM Nation got it, and Deprogrammed Radio got it. But People's Internet Radio and PSN Radio did not seem to pick it up, that I can tell, that I'm aware of. So, and it has not played yet on Spreaker, iHeart, iTunes, any of that stuff, or on YouTube. But William Ramsey, who, as you know, is a producer here at the Opperman Report, filled in and did a great job. Got a lot of compliments on the show. So kudos to William Ramsey. And he interviewed Juanita Broaddrick, who was molested by Bill Clinton. And then also, then he had another guest on about the Illuminati or something like that, New World Order. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but we got a lot of positive feedback on that show. So thank you very much, William Ramsey, who, by the way, has booked for me. I'm going to be taping on Monday with Kathleen Willey, who I believe said she was raped by Bill Clinton. Her husband died, and then she went to visit Clinton in the White House, and she was a supporter of Clinton. She was a donator. She was a big supporter until Bill Clinton attacked her, according to Kathleen Willey. So we have her coming on. I'm going to be taping with her on Tuesday. Big show tomorrow with Len Kolodny about the silent coup, a book about the Watergate, and their theory is that John Dean conspired the whole thing in order to have a silent coup and get Nixon out of the White House, which kind of fits in with some of the other stuff, you know, we've worked on. Then next Saturday on Saturday afternoon, American Freedom Radio and IPM Nation and People's Internet Radio and Public Streaming Radio and Deprogrammed Radio. And also, too, Awake Radio. What am I talking about? Awake Radio. And we should have the whole thing straightened out with Shaz's Radio, too, as well, by then. Hopefully. And be back on the air with them. We're doing a show about Adam Walsh. And I think it's called Troubled Witness or something like that. And it's a story about Adam, John Walsh's son, Adam. And these guys have a whole different theory on what went on in that case. Very interesting stuff. They got like 5 or 6 witnesses, too. I'm going to be speaking to one of the witnesses this week. Prior to doing that show, I'm going to tape with her. And I don't know what we're going to do with that. We might play it during the show. We might use it for the member section. I'm not sure what. But they got some interesting work that they're doing on the Adam Walsh case, where they believe that, who's that guy? Jeffrey Dahmer could be involved in that case. Hey, for some reason, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat room. Are we on? Am I on here? Anybody home? Let me see. I can test this way over here. I'm going to be calling up a guest to report. Oh. Yes. Okay. We are on the air. Okay. Where was I? I'll go back to my notes here. It's such a busy week. I'm exhausted. You guys have no idea. You guys have no idea. Okay. Oh, yeah. I got another thing coming up where I've been sent the O.J. Simpson police interrogation tapes. And I have a guest coming on with that. I have to sit down and listen to all those tapes, but what I hear is there's some really fascinating stuff on there. Went to visit. I'm going to tell you the whole story about Hank Harrison, my visit with Hank Harrison. We did film with Hank Harrison, had a professional film crew there. Well, probably the only thing professional about the interview and the whole segment. But, well, Hank's a fun guy. I got to tell you that. He's a fascinating man. There's no doubt about that. Good old Hank Harrison. We went there to his home and his horse ranch and all this kind of stuff. Got some drone footage over the horse ranch. We got footage there in Hank's home. We have coming, get this, we have, he's going to be providing for us pictures of Hank with Sandra Good and Sandra Good's sister. It turns out that Hank dated Sandra Good's sister, who you might remember was one of the Manson family women. So we're getting a picture of that and some pictures of Courtney as a kid, and also too some recordings that Hank has. That once we get in our possession, we'll be putting all this together in a nifty little documentary feature film. We have about 4 hours of video of me interviewing Hank. Very interesting stuff. Can't wait to tell you more about that. Hey, real quick, we're going to be calling up here Cindy West, who's going to be telling us about a Bernie Sanders protest coming up here. There's going to be a rally and a protest coming up here in Nevada. So I want to get Cindy West is one of the organizers. So we'll be getting her on the line here. Hi, Cindy. I think Cindy is in a waterfall. We'll give it one more try. I think Cindy was under a waterfall or going through a car wash, perhaps. We could not. I was unable. Just got this number a couple of minutes ago. Cindy.
Hello?
Hey, how are you? Yeah, I had some really bad audio there for a second. So this is Ed Opperman from the Opperman Report. You're live on the air.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? So now Cindy,
I'm doing great.
You're one of the organizers of this Bernie Sanders rally. What's going on?
Yes, I am. What we're doing is we're doing this rally to support Bernie Sanders, to let him know that we're still with him and we stand behind him no matter what.
Okay, and this is going to be June 26th out in front of the Bellagio Fountains from 12 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 p.m. So it's on a Sunday, June 26th. That's next Sunday, 12 to 8 p.m. Now, what is your story? Who is Cindy West?
Well, I'm just an average, citizen. I am just, Bernie has sparked this thing inside me that I've never had before. I had never really had an interest in politics or the government issues or anything like that. But, one day I was sitting there, watching the debates on TV, and I saw Bernie Sanders speak for the first time, and it just struck something inside me where I was like, wow, this guy is really talking to the people. And, he was really debating about real issues that, that affect us, and it affects, me as an individual. And I looked at it, what he was talking about, would affect my son in the future. So I started doing more research on Bernie Sanders, and I started, joining groups on Facebook, and I started, listening to Young Turks and, and hearing people talk about him. And I just immediately fell for this person because, he just speaks for the people. He's not talking about what we want to hear. He's actually talking about what we need to know and what we should change. So, and I did research, and I was like, wow, this guy has been doing the same platforms for over 30 years. He's been fighting for the same issue. So why wouldn't we support him? He's fighting for us, not for him.
Yeah, I know. You'd think it would be a simple, a no-brainer, as they call it, right? Now.
Yes, and I just don't understand why people don't understand the movement that he's doing. I mean, he's really speaking to us. I mean, I'm not, part of the 1%, and I don't know too many people that are. And I do appreciate, being in the middle class, and I don't ever want to be in the poverty. But at this rate, what's going on with everything, it's middle class is going to be eliminated. And, Bernie Sanders has been fighting for us for years, and I wish I knew about him early on because I would have supported him for day one.
Well, so it's pretty obvious he got robbed here in Nevada, okay, and it looks like he got robbed in California too. Because I was just covering the whole campaign.
I'm tired. I'm so tired of mainstream media, like doing all this false, broadcasting. They don't want to recognize that there has been, election fraud going on. They want to make it seem like, oh, it's all these independent voters that didn't register in time, and that's not the case. They've registered in time. I've known 3 people in California that said the same thing, that they were given provisional ballots, like they weren't even on the list. And I think that's just coincidental that that they weren't able to submit their vote in time, for the broadcasting on the news media. They want to make it look like Hillary, already won, but the count's not over, and a lot of people don't understand that.
So now, what are you going to do now if Bernie does drop out, or loses at the convention? Okay, there's a vote at the convention, and the Democrats put Hillary in. Are you going to vote for Hillary?
I really don't want to have to think about that because I'm really not going down that route. I'm tired of people talking about how she's representing the Democrats and vote blue and all this kind of stuff, but to me, she's not really a Democrat. She's just she just has a label as a Democrat. So it just really irritates me that everybody looks at Bernie Sanders and says he's he's not even a real Democrat, even though he's voted 99% of the time for Democrats. They look at it, then they say that he's not a real Democrat. But if you look at the other candidate, her, she really is she's really a Republican with just a stamp of Democrat on there. So I don't understand how she's supposed to relate to Democrats. I really don't. And I don't understand why people still look at her and think, let's vote blue.
I hear you. Now, is this the first time you ever registered to vote?
No, I've voted before, and I voted for Obama, which now I'm starting to regret that decision since he turned around and wants to endorse her. So that was a real disappointment.
Yeah, it's looking too. A video just came out tonight that showed Bernie's reaction when he found out that Obama endorsed Hillary. Did you see that?
No, I haven't, and I've just been watching all these other stuff that's been popping up on the news feeds and Young Turks, and and I'm just seeing that I don't even want to see his reaction. I'm just disappointed as it is. Even with Elizabeth Warren coming out now, it's really just disappointing because this just gives the mainstream media more fuel to speed out more lies to us. If they want to go ahead and they want to endorse them, fine. We're still with them. We're the ones that matter. Us, the people. We're the ones that vote. Our votes count. All they're just going to do is just endorse them.
Yeah.
They don't make my decisions for me. I make my own decisions, and I do my own research. So just because there's endorsing the other candidate, that's fine. I'm still going to vote for Bernie.
It looks like Obama totally stabbed him in the back and didn't even tell him he was going to do that, because there's a video of Sanders sitting in Harry Reid's office, and then suddenly he hears about this, and there's a really, really sad look. It's really a devastated look, that it looks like he got stabbed in the back, that he didn't know that Obama was going to do that. But what are you going to do?
I believe it. I mean, Bernie's been playing nice this whole time. He hasn't really been attacking the other candidate, with all the quote on Republican propaganda. And, I just really regret it. I really wish he would have attacked her and played dirty like that too, Well, it's not really playing dirty if he's really telling the truth. But, he could have really pointed out a lot of things that, this other candidate, why we shouldn't really support her and why she wasn't the nominee in 2008.
Yeah. Okay, so what can we expect to do when we get there on June 26th at 12 noon on Sunday out in front of the Bellagio fountains?
Just expect an extravagant event. I mean, it would be nice if Bernie would be there, but, we can just sit there and we can show that we're really supporting them. And I hope that the mainstream media does come down and does get to see that we are serious, that we really are behind him, that we really support him. You know what I mean? It would be nice, to see that, but I'm not counting on it, but it would be nice. But, you know, I think just being there and supporting him and showing them that we haven't given up, so he shouldn't give up, regardless of everything that's happened, I mean, that would be phenomenal.
And
I mean, this is the time to, like, step up and make that, you know, movement. This is the time for the revolution. This is time to let our voices be heard and let them know that, hey, you know, even though you're screwing us over on all this election stuff, we're still standing behind them and we're not giving up on them. And no matter what you say and no matter what you're trying to tell us to do, we're not giving up.
have you put this up on the Bernie Sanders website?
I believe we have done. We've been posting all kinds of stuff on everybody's site, and we're kind of like scrambling right now to get it together, so that way we can do it the right way. So we will be putting it up on all the stuff if we haven't already, because we have like other co-hosts, you know, people on there that are doing it, and we're just going full speed right now, and we're trying to cover every end right now.
Okay, Cindy, thank you so much, and we'll be there. We'll see you on Sunday, June 26th, 12 noon, out in front of Bellagio.
Thank you. And I just wanted to let everybody know, do not believe mainstream media. It's not over, and we will see him in Philly. And it will be a contested convention, and we will take this nomination back.
Thank you, Cindy.
We will make history.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, they got Cindy West. We're going to keep the good fight going there with Bernie Sanders, and going to rally out there in front of Bellagio next week. Next week. Next week, not this Sunday, next week. So, okay. All right. Let's see. What's going on here? Okay. Okay. Right. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Boy, I had so much happened. Before I left on Friday, before I left last week to go do the, go out and visit Hank and visit with the Bernie campaign and stuff like that, I had a whole bunch of stuff prepared for last Friday, because the plan was on Friday night was we were going to broadcast live from the Cloverdale Airport where Bernie was having a rally. So we were going to play that live, and then I was going to do my after show live from that rally. Okay, we had it all timed out, all perfectly and stuff like that. But then it turned out I could not get Wi-Fi. They had no Wi-Fi for us, for the press, at the rally there. So we could not do that, okay, which was the big plan. So I was going to play the show, you know, from my laptop over Spreaker, and then I was going to do the show live on Spreaker, but not the after show on the other stations. Could not do that. So there's a lot of stuff I had prepared for that show. One thing I wanted to talk about is that there's a local radio here in Las Vegas. About a year ago, these two guys show up called Dave and Chad. And, you know, they're real yucky kind of, the radio DJs. Hey, Dave and Chad coming at you here with more news and talk in the morning. These kind of guys. But it's a right-wing station. They're on an incredibly right-wing station. As a matter of fact, this station has this sponsor on there that has a hearing aid company. And he comes on and gives these right-wing speeches. You know, he used to promote his hearing aids, but now he's just so old and so rich, because those things go for like $5,000 a piece. You know, he's got a million complaints online too about his business. But now he just does these political ads, you know, which is totally illegal. This guy's not a PAC, you know, that you could just do political ads. You know, you can't do that. The guy's spending way over the amount. You know. Anyway, I got to get around to reporting this guy. But anyway, so these Dave and Chad characters are on this really right-wing station here now. Okay, and when they first showed up, they says, "Yeah, we're conservative, but we're not GOP hacks. We're not towing the party line," and They kind of talk about, you know, New World Order and Illuminati and stuff and chemtrails and things. They got this website where they really get into bizarre stuff. But they kind of kept it tame on the air. And they said, well, you know, we're not the usual party hacks. We're not going to just toe the right-wing GOP line here. But then, you know, ultimately they did, and they supported Trump. Okay? You know, and it was kind of funny watching their whole transition what was going on with these two characters. You know, they call themselves libertarians at one point. You know, it was fascinating. Well, there was a big shakeup. And I'm kind of tuned in because I've contacted all the stations here locally and stuff like that. I've talked to a lot of different hosts. Like one of them I even knew from a long time ago when we used to debate on the Court TV website. She was with the Court TV chatter with us, and then she used to talk about how she was in radio, and then she showed up here in Vegas radio. There's a small world, you know. Another guy they have here locally is this guy Wayne Allen Root, who was really a nobody until he started doing the opening comedy act for the Trump rallies. And that's what really made this guy take off. Now he has a show on that Blaze, you know, the Glenn Beck station. So a couple of weeks back, so, you know, I've checked around here trying to get my show on these stations here, what the packages are and how much it costs to get on and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty much aware of the local radio scene and what's going on. And people like to talk to me, and how people like to talk to me, they confide in me. A couple of weeks back, right before we made this long trip, one day I tune in, because me and Vic like to tune in to Dave and Chad as we drive to school in the morning, because they're so stupid right-wing, you know, knuckleheads, you know, and we laugh about it. And we tune in, they're gone. Right? And then I check one of the, you know, I flip to the other station, and they did a shake-up on the other stations, too. They moved the guy from the afternoon drive down to the morning. They did this whole big shake-up here on local radio. And who do they bring in to replace Dave and Chad? They bring in some right-wing hack from Chicago. And every single day, the only people he has on his show are Republican Party candidates, local and even national. It's sort of, this guy says, I think his show is really based out of Chicago. And what they're doing is, and Trump is funding this guy, Wayne Allen Root. Now he has a huge show down here with no sponsors. Someone's paying to get him on there. You know, you have to bring sponsors with you, or you know, to get on these stations. You have to pay to get on these stations. That's how it works. Clyde Lewis, you know, when he's on, he pays those stations to be on there, and then you it's like a business. You buy the airtime, and then you have sponsors to pay you back, and you keep the difference. But it appears it's what's going on here is that this is all being funded by right-wing political groups are funding these talk radio stations beyond just putting ads on, but they're putting in their own people there to have nonstop right-wing rants going on. And it's interesting because I was going to do the same thing. Okay, I wanted to go on in California and just do Bernie shows, and you know, and the month before Bernie, you know, it's totally illegal to do it. But there's no one investigating this or prosecuting this. And the what's it called? The FEC, the Federal Election Commission, does nothing. They're a toothless giant right now. They don't investigate anything. They don't prosecute anything. Although they did go after some Ron Paul guy about a year ago with machine guns too. They broke into his house and arrested him with a big SWAT type raid. So I'm learning more and more about how radio works and the politics of radio works. And I learned a lot, too, this week, being on the press bus and doing these press events. And I'm still trying to digest it all and bring it to you. Oh, boy, we got a break already. I'm not getting anywhere tonight. I'm not getting anything out here tonight. I'm not being able to explain anything. Man, I'm going to get Cindy West back on the line so she can tell us a little bit more about this rally. Okay, we're going to take a break. Oh, no, I may not be able to play ads because I may have screwed up here. Let me see if I can do this. Yes, I can. Okay. And what am I going to do, too, pretty soon after this primary is over? I may not have these Bernie ads to play anymore. Wouldn't that be sad? Well, hopefully we'll get something going here. We'll be right back after these messages. This is your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And if you're enjoying the show right now, there's more. You can get more. You can go to the Ed Opperman YouTube channel, and you can subscribe there. And we have archives of all of our past shows for over the past 3 years, about 200, 300 shows. You can also go to the Opperman Report Spreaker channel, and you could follow us there. Again, a ton of shows, about 300 shows on there. And whenever we do an impromptu show, an emergency-type broadcast that we do during the week occasionally, you'll get an email notifying you of breaking news and spontaneous broadcasts that we may do during the week. You can also go to OppermanReport.com and become a member. If you become a member, you help support the free archives on Spreaker and YouTube, and you help support the free shows on Friday evening and on Saturday evening. Each of these shows, Friday evening and Saturday evening, are carried for free on 7 internet stations, okay? So you help support that, but also, too, at OppermanReport.com in the members section, we have exclusive content. Shows that are recorded during the week that are only available to members. So please check out OppermanReport.com and help support the show.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, Bernie Sanders. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. Bernie moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system that holds up a rigged economy. Bernie's campaign is funded by over 1 million small contributions from people like you. He's fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges. Bernie Sanders.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Check out strawmanmusic.com. Sean Duff is our webmaster here at the Opperman Report, and he's a very talented musician. He's part of a band called Strawman. They're based up there in Canada. Don't hold that against them. These are like-minded folks. If you like the shows you hear on the Opperman Report, you'll like the music that they have over at strawmanmusic.com.
Enough is enough. Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the 1930s. And then, after getting a huge taxpayer bailout because they were too big to fail, it turns out that 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger today than they were before we bailed them out. That's crazy. I'm Bernie Sanders. My plan: break up the big banks who are strangling our economy and make them pay their fair share of taxes. Then we can invest in the middle class, expand Social Security, and provide universal college education. I'll rein in Wall Street behavior so they can't crash our economy again. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, Democratic candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
You know, you can get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, if you go to my website, emailrevealer.com. Now, this is a limited edition book, okay? And you can get a signed copy of this book, and it'll be personally autographed to you or whoever you want to give the book to as a gift. Once you have my signature on that book, you can copy the signature and put it on checks and pass them all over the world. Emailrevealer.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator.
He's fought injustice and inequality his whole life. Bernie Sanders. As a college student, he was arrested for challenging segregated housing. Bernie marched with Dr. King and thousands of others for civil rights. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families on health care and jobs. Now he's taking on Wall Street banks and a corrupt political system that keeps in place a rigged economy. Bernie Sanders, a reformer who believes in ending racial profiling and mass incarceration so the justice system works for everyone. Bernie Sanders.
There is no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism and reform our broken criminal justice system.
Bernie Sanders, an honest leader building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. And don't forget, the new name of the book is How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. And you can find that up on Amazon, or you can get it at my website, emailrevealer.com. Okay, I seem to be a little frazzled tonight. Okay, a little frazzled, you know. I got to go run and pick up Vic in a few minutes. We had a dead battery problem, so I've been kind of scrambling around today, so I don't seem to have my thoughts in focus. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do an after show tomorrow after the American Freedom Radio show, maybe just a half hour to describe the Hank Harrison trip and the Bernie Sanders trip, covering the Bernie Sanders events, because a lot did go on, and that I don't want to just blah, 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 you know, just blab it out all confused. But I'll tell you this. I'm still, like I said, I'm still trying to digest everything I experienced this week. But I'll tell you this. More than ever, I'm convinced that people understand what I'm doing with this show. A lot of people get what I'm trying to do here. Okay, but I take this so seriously. You guys have no idea how much this show means to me. Normally, I work on the show 40 hours a week, even more. And this week, we were very busy driving. And some days we drove 20 hours. You have no idea. Okay, we were out there. We were up by some Cloverdale Airport, and then we went up to Kelseyville Lake. We were everywhere, man. We drove down some scary roads. We went some scary places this week. Let me tell you, man. Let me tell you. But just from seeing how many people who missed the show, how much it meant to them, and how much they appreciated it, but also, too, hanging around these reporters. And we hung around with guys from CNN, New York Times. Okay, we hung around. Victoria was up on the bleachers with the photographers, with all the photographs you see. She was up there right next to them. Okay, one time they started pushing her out of the way. But you know, we were there. We were there in the thick of mainstream media. Young Turks weren't there, by the way. Okay, I don't think they were invited, but we were invited. And you know, you talk to these people, and I ask a lot of questions, a lot of stuff I want to report back to you. I want to do it carefully because a lot of it's off the record. My impression of these people and what it's like. I think I'm going to do that tomorrow night. But I'll tell you this. A lot of them, you know, when we started talking, we were talking about Trump University and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there in the back of the bus and I'm talking about Trump University. I'm talking about stuff that no one on that bus heard of. Okay? And then after the bus, you know, people were turning around saying, well, what's this guy? You know, who's this guy back there? You know, who's this new guy? Who's the new guy? As a matter of fact, we did a press conference and they all expected, because I really muscled my way. Guys, I'm really proud of what I did this week. I really muscled my way in with this. This is a pretty intense group of people, you know, with better educations than I've ever had and more experience and all kinds of qualifications and things, you know. And when we had the Bernie press conference, people were kind of expecting, you know, hey, the new guy is going to really, you know, step up here and say something. But I really couldn't think of anything to ask or say. So I just kind of sat there and observed, you know, and listened. You cannot believe some of this stuff, too, is so bizarrely stupid. Some of these people are just airheads. One guy, and I think he was from the New York Times, asked Bernie, do you think it's sexist for you to stay in the race? Okay. You know, it's just bizarre crap. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to put that together for you a little bit better when I'm not so distracted. But I've come back from this week, and I've come back from my hiatus, energized, positive, with a newfound respect for my own work. okay, and for what we're doing here. And for people like William Ramsey I have helping me, and Sean Duff, and the team we have put together here. And all the supporters, those listeners who help, with the donations. I can't thank you guys so much, for helping us out, making this trip possible, But we're definitely hitting a stride and new level of accomplishment here, and we're going to need a new level of funding that goes beyond donations and even this little measly member section that we have. We need real funding. To be on the campaign bus, it's $150 a day. Now, there's no reason why in the future we can't be on the campaign bus every single they were allowed, and be on the plane, the campaign plane. You just need money to get on there, And I have the respect of these people, that's for sure. They've heard, after they met me and talked to me, they listened to the show. They came back and very impressed with the topics of the people like St. John Hunt and Frank Sturgis' nephew and these kind of people I bring on the show, like May Pang and Billy Hayes. Billy Hayes, the kid from Midnight Express. People are really, and these are professionals in the business, and telling me that I'm lucky because of the freedom I have here to do what I want, my own creative control, that I have complete creative control over what I'm doing, and I don't have to worry about editorial censorship that they're going through. Yeah, I know. I just want to explain it. I know people can't wait to hear it. But I just want to do it when I have a clear head. So we got we only have like 20 minutes left. No, yeah, they do no research. Yeah, well, because they were asking me, how did I find out? They said, well, how do you know all this about Trump University? And I said, oh, I know all this. So I said, well, I read the deposition. I just got it last week. I got it from Steve Brill from Court TV. Sent it to me. And then, well, how'd you get it? Well, I asked for it. And I asked for it, and I sit down and I read it. I didn't read the whole thing yet, but I read a huge portion of it, And it just I don't think they really do any work. They really get their press release and they talk to people. They talk to people in the Bernie campaign, and they get their, but they treat those people like their boss. The people. I got to get into more details, but because there's different people who run each event. The local kind of organizers are in charge that you're in contact with, and they schmooze up to them, but they treat them like that person is their boss, and ask questions, and ask permission, and they want to be on their good side. But I just kind of just bullied my way around everything and just did whatever I wanted, and it worked out good, And no, we didn't get uninvited from anything in the future, so everybody liked me. So it went well. Okay, and I don't see the Young Turks doing it, by the way, guys. I got to hear about the Young Turks every 5 seconds. Okay, we're going to have a no Young Turks zone on the Opperman Report. No discussing the Young Turks. Okay, we don't need the Young Turks around here. Okay, so I'll just fill in this time with some funny, humorous stories. All right. I'll tell you the story about how I went to Provincetown and stayed at Richard Simmons' house. Okay? How's that? Okay, I could fill 20 minutes with that. Only 17 minutes I only have to fill now. Okay. You might be hearing all this stuff on the news about how Richard Simmons, there's this theory that he's living as a woman. He's getting a sex change operation. He's transitioning, as they like to call it these days. I think into a woman named Fiona or something like that. This story had come on my radar about 6 or 7 months ago, that Simmons was it was like in hibernation, in seclusion in his home and wasn't coming out. And a former friend of his was alleging that his maid was holding him hostage and he was being abused and elder abuse and all this kind of stuff like that. And so we tried to track down this guy who was making these allegations, and I found that he was an artist at an artist website, and I tried to contact him. He never got back to me. We could never work anything out to get this guy on the show. So this was on my radar. And then it's come out in the past week that what's really going on is He's transitioning into a woman, and he does leave his home, but he leaves as a woman. And that's why friends of his haven't seen him, stuff like that. Now, let me tell you my little Richard Simmons story. Back in New York City in the 90s, okay, my best friend, the guy from Harbor Aviation, NYPD Harbor Aviation, and his wife, Sarah, called me up one time when I was working, and he says, come up to Provincetown. We're in Provincetown, New England, and we're up here on a little vacation, and we got a motel room, you know. Come up and see us. It's fun. It's a great little town. There's all kind of exciting stuff going on here, right? So I says, okay, well, you know, where is it? How do I get there? I didn't even heard this place. Right? He says, well, you get on this thing. He gives me these instructions on how to get there, right? And this is before MapQuest or GPS and that kind of stuff. So I had to, like, write it down on a napkin, you know. And I had a cell phone because I was in the cell phone business back in those days. And I think I had either my Mustang or I had a Thunderbird. But I had a big V8 engine. I could drive 120 miles an hour like a lunatic. Okay, which I did all the time back in those days. Now I got a little 4-cylinder car to save on gas. I'm so broke. So I loaded up the car with champagne. I got about 10 bottles of champagne and ice and some, I guess, snacks and cold cuts and stuff like that, goodies. You know, I'm sort of driving up there to Provincetown, like a 4 or 5 hour drive from Staten Island. And the directions they gave me were some crazy freaking directions. They told me to get off the interstate and take some side street for like 100 miles. And so I kept asking people, you know, am I going the right way? Oh, yeah, you got to keep going. You got to keep going and going, you know. So finally I get up there, and it's the crack of dawn. It's late. You know, and I need a drink, man. I've been driving 5 hours. And I get there. I guess it wasn't that late. It was about midnight. And I missed the motel where they were staying. Because I saw the motel, but it looked like this crappy place. I said, boy, this can't be the place where we're staying. I'm not staying in this. Meanwhile, you should have seen the place I stayed this week. You should have seen some of these places we stayed. I had Victoria with me, man. You got to see some of the places we stayed. We were in some serial killer motels, man. So I get down there to Providence, and they had a parade. It turns out it's a gay week. It's a gay town. The whole town is gay. You know, a lot of homosexual activity going on in this place, right? But it's in a little quaint shops and antique stores and bars and stuff like that, and really good food, restaurants, great seafood, and all kind of stuff. I remember we ate like kings that week. But I couldn't find this freaking motel where we were staying. So I'm driving, and now I'm driving through this parade, okay? Because the parade's over, and everybody's like walking through the street. And, you know, I think I had the convertible, yeah, because I remember there was a guy walking next to me. The whole town is gay, let me tell you. The whole town is gay. Even the straights are gay. And there was a guy walking next to me. It's like 1994, 93. And there's a guy walking next to me, and he's all puffing and puffing. He's a real skinny guy, weighed about 80 pounds. The concentration camp survivor. And I say, hey, man, where's this motel? And he goes, oh, I know where it is. I'll take you there. Give me a ride. He says, I can't walk. I'm so tired. I can't. He's coughing. You know? I said, all right, get in the car. I'm going to regret this, right? This guy's going to die in my car. But I let him get in the car. And then he's telling me, oh, yeah, it's right up this road. You just go up here. Don't worry. I'm going to take you there. I'm going to get you there. Oh, can you do this for me? Can we stop here and get some soup? The guy's thinking of this stuff. No, I'll get you a ride. I'm not going to get you soup. So then we're driving slow because everyone's walking in the street, and he sees some guy, and he starts flirting with some guy who's walking in the street. Then he hops out of the car to go with this guy. I got left. I'm left in Provincetown, but, you know, the only good-looking guy there. But I found the motel. And I find the motel. I can't find the room. And I'm driving around. And I see some guy walking around with a flashlight. And I said, hey, man, you know, where's the front desk? What's going on here? And I'm looking for this. He goes, are you Ed? And I go, yeah. He goes, here, I got a note for you. Okay, he gives me the note, and it has the directions to find the rooms. Bob found a guy, a maintenance man or whatever, who walks around this place. Gave him a note to give to me in case the guy saw me. Okay, fine. And now I find the room. I get into this room. My God. It's horrible. You know? Then I got my champagne. You're like, let's sit down and have a drink. Okay, we're not staying here, guys. We can't stay in this place. This place is horrible. So I get on the phone the next morning. I guess we stayed there that night. And I says, we got to find like a bed and breakfast, something, or a room for rent or something like that. There's got to be. I said, well, how are we going to find that? Well, okay, we get the local paper. We find an ad. We'll find something. Somehow I found us a room. Okay, I'm a capable guy. I can get things done. I find us a room, and we go to the place. It's a freaking mansion. Oh, in fact, we got a couple of rooms. We got 2 rooms. The place is a freaking. It's like the size of like a. I remember because at the time I was living in a condo that was 3 stories high. With like I guess we had 4 apartments on each floor, and this place was like the size of my whole building where I lived. It was huge up there. That'd be the most expensive place there. So there's a guy, who greets us, and okay, well, no contracts. We don't need contracts. Don't worry, just pay cash at the end of the night or the morning, whatever. We give some cash and pay for your room, and you can come down and use the fridge and put food in the fridge, do whatever you want. So everybody's happy and everybody's cool. We're all getting along. So, and they had a huge. I remember the backyard went on forever, and it was chairs back there. We're living like kings, right? And it was great restaurants up there too. Really nice places to eat. So one day, the guy who owned the house, we thought he was the owner, he was the one who took our money, wasn't there. So we're drunk all the time, and we said, okay, let's go look around. Let's explore the house. Let's spy on stuff. Let's go through the drawers and see what we could find. And they had a big living room, and then there was like another dining room, and then there was a great room. All these rooms for entertaining, like a TV room. All these rooms. That we weren't, really allowed to use, but we were going. He let us use them, just for a minute. But anyway, so now we're exploring everything. We go in, and there's one room that was all decorated like Mardi Gras, with Mardi Gras beads and the masks and all that kind of stuff, and things on the wall. And but in every room were these little statues of Dalmatians and pictures of Dalmatians, dogs. The dogs with the spots. It was almost everywhere. And there were like little dolls, like porcelain dolls, like little clown dolls, Very interesting decor in this place. And we go into one of these rooms, and we see pictures of Richard Simmons with dogs. He had like 4 dogs. I know you could tell it was pictures of him, in this house and in the backyard and in the yard by the pool and all that kind of stuff like that. So, and then there was also there was like a portrait painting of Richard Simmons all by himself. So, when the guy came back, we didn't want to say, we didn't want to say, hey man, we've been spying on your house all day long, and this is Richard Simmons' house, isn't it? So, but, we just kind of, we started talking about, hey, what is this, who owns the house, and then, we were going to leave anyway. So then we confronted the guy and said, hey, what's the deal with Richard Simmons? Richard Simmons, does Richard Simmons own this house? And the guy goes, well, I'm not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to discuss that at all whatsoever. We're not allowed to say the R name here. All kinds of stuff like that. So the whole thing was just a whole bizarre thing. But we did stay at Richard Simmons' house. That was the only bizarre thing I could tell you about is the room that had the Mardi Gras theme, and I found out later on that Richard Simmons was from Louisiana. That's where he lived, in New Orleans. That's where he grew up, and that he did have like 6 Dalmatians. So it all fit and it all makes sense. And even though the guy never 100% did acknowledge that the place was owned by Richard Simmons, what are you going to do? I guess it was just like a vacation home that he had there, and that he had this caretaker living there, and that he also rented out. One more thing, a bizarre thing that happened this week, is right before we left, I've been having a friend of mine help me clean the house. We're doing like a big spring cleaning here and decorating a little bit, I have all these old pictures and photos and stuff like that, and really, really cool stuff. I got these really cool photographs. They're like limited edition photos of like Muhammad Ali and the Kennedys. Really cool stuff. The moon landing. They're like black and white. And I got a bunch of them, and so they're all in really nice frames too. And I got them back in New York like 25 years ago. And I got these sketches too, you know. One is like of the Godfather, you know, series, all the different scenes from the Godfather. And they're like pencil sketchings, you might call them. And another one is of a collage of Muhammad Ali. And I told my friend, I said, hey, help me out. Come on, you hang up all these pictures. You're so pretty, and you're so creative and artistic. Just hang them anywhere you want, anywhere in the house. Use your own creative discretion, just like you would be decorating your house. So she hung up all the pictures, and not all of them. She picked out a few of them. And right over the couch, she put the 2 Muhammad Ali pictures. She put them up the same day that Muhammad Ali died. I haven't had those pictures up on my wall. Man, I think even since before, might have been like 10 years. Because I don't think we had them up on the wall when we had the house, when I was renting that house with the dog and stuff. So it was really like a weird thing that we would hang up these pictures, right around the time that he died. Because Muhammad Ali has been such a huge influence in my life. I'm a huge fan of Muhammad Ali. And in fact, we're going to be doing a show, too. My father's best friend wrote a book about boxing. And he knew Muhammad Ali. And there's even a picture of Muhammad Ali promoting his book, sitting on a bed in a bathrobe and holding up the book, and they took pictures of it to promote the book, And it was really helpful in promoting the book for my father's friend. And I'll tell you something. There is on this sketch, there's a quote from Muhammad Ali. And it says, if you are to be a great champion, you have to be the greatest. And if you're not, just pretend that you are. And I got to tell you something. When I first saw that, it really meant something to me. It really struck a nerve on me. And I've had that picture since like 85. Probably even earlier than that, probably like 83, 82. And it's really gotten me through a lot of stuff, different things in my life. Just, you got to believe you're the greatest. But if you're not, just pretend you are. You can convince yourself. You can fool yourself into thinking you're the greatest and you can get stuff done, And just something that meant a lot to me that I thought I would share with you guys. Good old Muhammad Ali, if I don't know how anybody my age or older cannot say that this man has not had a huge effect on their life. I can remember the last fight he had when he lost that last fight. I can remember I can remember the next day being in Corvettes watching after he got beat by Leon Spinks. I never thought Muhammad Ali would lose to anybody. And I can remember being in Corvettes and seeing that on all the TVs in the little TV department there. I can remember we had Betty Metzger on the show who did the story about the burglary of the FBI offices, and how she talked about how they picked the night that Ali was fighting Frazier because everyone was glued to their radios because it wasn't on TV. You had to listen on the radio. And if you wanted to watch it, you had to go to a movie theater and pay like $25 back then to get into a movie theater and watch it live. Otherwise, you had to be there at the fight. Before that, there was never any kind of deal about pay-per-view where you went to a movie theater to watch a fight. No one ever heard of anything like that. That was all Muhammad Ali. He changed the face of boxing. He was a revolutionary. He was a civil rights activist. Vietnam War protester, a conscientious objector. Huge hero in my life. And I got to tell you something. There's a lot of idiots out there with all this nonsense about how he's a Freemason, Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. People really got to take a step back from all that. And I got to tell you something. And even I'm going to have to take a little step back and be a little bit more responsible about what I put on the air. Because we really can get someplace with this show. We really can make a difference with this show. I'm telling you guys. I was there, okay, with the guys, CNN, New York Times, all these guys, okay? And by talking about Trump, what I knew about Trump University, I'm influencing what's being reported. If I could get $150 a day and be on his bus every day and be on the plane every day, I could influence what's going on with this group. I know I can. So, a lot of stuff we're working on, guys. And I apologize for being a little frazzled tonight, but it's been a long week. It's been a long trip. Still scrambling around, trying to get work done. I had a dead battery all day long, so I couldn't get a lot of stuff done. I'll do an after show tomorrow, okay? But I want to appreciate and thank everybody for sticking with me, and I apologize for missing the show last week, or a little screw-up. Tomorrow I got a big show, Silent Coup, with, I think his name is Glenn Kennedy. Len Colodny and Robert Getlin about Silent Coup, about how the John Dean orchestrated the Watergate burglary in order to get Nixon ousted from power. All right, guys, I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your support this week and helping us get to to California, to Hank's Place and stuff like that. We'll be talking more tomorrow. Thank you.